Welcome to our board meeting of December the 14th. At this time, I call the meeting to order and ask that we all rise for O Canada and the land acknowledgement.
The land upon which we work, live, and sustain ourselves is the ancestral and treaty lands of the Michizagig Anishinaabe, also known today as the Mississaugas of the Credit, the rightful caretakers and title holders of this land. We also recognize the rich pre-contact history and relationships which include the Anishinaabe and the Ongwe Hongwe.
Since European contact, this land continues to be home to Indigenous and non-Indigenous peoples. As responsible community members, we value the diversity, dignity, and worth of all people.
Colonialism displaced and dispossessed Indigenous peoples of their ancestral land
and continues to deny their basic human rights, dignities, and freedoms.
We are committed to learning true history to reconcile, make reparations, and fulfill our treaty obligations to the original peoples and our collective responsibilities to the lands, water, animals, and each other for future generations.
I'm going to ask for approval of the agenda. As the board is still under supervision, Supervisor Rodriguez has approved the agenda this afternoon. Does anyone have any conflict of interest? I'm not seeing any. So I'm going to move to the next item, which is item 5, celebrating item on the agenda of the board activity. January is Tamil Heritage Month. The first Tamil Heritage Month was celebrated in Canada in 2010. The recognition of Tamil Heritage Month in January was declared by the Ontario government in 2014 and then by Canada Parliament in 2016. According to the 2021 census, approximately 240,000 people identify as Tamil in Canada. In the Peel District School Board, the 2018 student census indicate that 3.7% of students speak Tamil. Tamil Heritage Months offer the opportunity for Peel District School Board students, their family, staff, to celebrate and educate future generation about the achievement and the contribution of Tamil within and beyond Canada. Our publicly stated commitment to anti-racism, anti-oppression will ensure that this occurs through engaging, equitable, inclusion, and aligned in-person learning, modifying through culturally relevant program and opportunities. In celebration of Tamil Heritage Month, we continue to center student lives, experience, as well as amplify the community definition of Tamil flourishing. And we wish them well when it arrives. Thank you. This time we're going to move to item 6 on the agenda, which is retirement. Tonight, Trustee Vice Chair Cole is online, but she's not doing well. Her voice is not cooperating with her tonight, so I'll be reading the names of those that are retiring this month. Diane Ashton, Sharon Bruns, Patricia Berger, Jeff Coates, Sharon DeNova, Diane Dodd, Freddie D'Souza, Norma Gold, Oliver Arding, Colleen Lowy, Mark Marshall, Kim McEwen, Daryl Mendes, Laurel Sat Kafi, Cameron C. Nova, Debbie Sutana. And these are the retirees for this month. I would like to take this time to thank them for their years of service and dedication and commitment to the Peel District School Board. We'll move to item 7 on the agenda tonight, and there is no chair announcements. So we're going to move to item 8, and we're going to turn it over to our two student trustee this afternoon, who's going to tell us a little bit about what they have been doing and bringing us some exciting news since they started their term in August.
Thank you, and through you, Chair and Supervisor Rodriguez, Avneet and I would like to give a December Student Trustee report today. So the first thing we'd like to talk about is back in October, Avneet and I attended the Fall General Meeting by the Ontario Student Trustee Association. As student trustees, we attend 3 of these conferences provided by OSTA ACO a year. The Fall General Meeting is where we get to share best practices and learning with student trustees from across Ontario, while engaging in workshops from different organizations. Today, I'd like to share some highlights from the conference. At OSTA, all of us have the opportunity to join one of 6 working groups, such as Indigenous Relations or Student Wellbeing. These groups engage in provincial initiatives, and Avneet and I both joined the Equity and Inclusion Working Group. We had discussions on the dress code and other really important issues that impact students today. We're excited to see what initiatives and work will be done in this regard. Personally, my favorite part of being a student trustee is the opportunities I've had to talk to so many different people and learn about their lived experiences, stories, and voices. And at that conference, we did just that. A highlight for both of us was engaging with keynote speaker, Minister Stephen Lecce. A guest speaker was also School Mental Health Ontario and the Ontario Physical and Health Education Association, where we engaged in activities and discussions on student advocacy and mental health. We brought back lots of learning to Peel and cannot wait to use it for good and continue our involvement. And now I'll pass it on to Avneet to talk about some other initiatives we've been doing.
Thank you. Through you, Chair Green. Recently, myself and Evelyn had the chance to work with the PSPC, which is the Peel Student President Council. We had a student voice meeting where we had a couple of students from different schools join us. At this meeting, we spoke about what student trustees' roles and responsibilities are. We also focused on having conversations about what they would like to see more at their schools, as well as having open conversations about consent culture, racial seminars, mental health, and the LGBTQ+ community, as well as the type of support systems they have in their schools. We asked the students feedback on various issues, like the dress code as well. Also opened the floor to them about any topics they would like to address. We are also working towards having chats or direct connections with school SACs, which are the student activity councils, with one another, allowing our students to get to know what's going on in other schools and have more ideas on how they can bring this to their school environment specifically. Overall, I feel like these student voice meetings help us gain a bigger understanding on what's going on in our schools and how to help our students and hear them out. I have also had the opportunity to work with Superintendent Bernadette Smith, as well as my superintendent, Neerja Punjabi, on a podcast. On this podcast, it gives us an outline of what we'll be doing for STEAM in our schools, as well as a bit about myself and what I plan to do for mental health and consult culture. To be able to have this opportunity for myself and Evelyn is amazing, and we cannot wait for the rest of the year to come. We are more than happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Thank you for your report tonight, and thank you for all that you do for your colleagues and ensuring that they are keeping in line with what's taking place and the amount of work that you guys do together as student trustees representing your colleagues both in the North and in the South. We do appreciate your dedication and your commitment. Thank you very much. Supervisor Rodriguez is in receipt of your report. Thank you. We're going to move to item 9 on the agenda tonight, and we have no report from trustee that are appointed to external organization. So we'll move to item number 10, and I'm going to turn it over to our Director Sru, at this time.
Thank you, Chair Green. Good evening, Supervisor Rodriguez, trustees, staff, and community members. Schools opened to in-person learning this September, and it is amazing to see the energy and excitement of having students and staff in schools again. We continue to prioritize the health and safety of students and staff as related to COVID-19. In this phase of the pandemic, and with the cold and flu season upon us, we continue to follow the advice of Peel Public Health and the Ministry of Education to maintain safety in our schools and workplaces. We strongly recommend masking for students and staff and encourage families to consider vaccinating school-aged children against COVID-19 and the seasonal flu. We are recommending that families continue practicing other protective measures such as hand washing, avoiding touching one's face, staying home when ill, and masking for 10 days after being symptomatic to help protect children, themselves, and others from viruses that are circulating. We are committed to regular and specific communications in a variety of ways to promote messages about safe practices for students and staff aligned with Peel Public Health guidance to all our families in a timely manner Next, I want to share with you that the 2021-2022 Director's Annual Report will be released next month. It will provide a comprehensive overview of the work done during the year to support student achievement and well-being. As a staff, we are committed to upholding human rights and equity and ensuring an anti-oppressive, anti-racist, and anti-colonial approach in our work with an emphasis on the ministry directives and beyond. I would also like to share that plans for the student census and climate survey are underway, with the research department currently conducting consultations with staff and community groups in preparation of the planned April 2023 launch. Ultimately, the voluntary census will help us to better understand all student populations and school communities, to identify and eliminate barriers to student success, inclusion, and well-being, and to establish effective programs and reallocate resources to where they are needed most. So that is very important work that's coming up. And now, I'd like to share a number of inspiring student achievement stories. And the students' respective principals will introduce them, as you will see in the following video.
My name is Fraser Kidd, and I'm the principal of Glen Forest Secondary School. I'm proud to share that one of our students in the International Baccalaureate program, 16-year-old Alicia Aurora, was recently recognized as the youngest recipient of WXN's Top 100 Most Powerful Women in Canada Awards. She's been making her mark on a global scale for years. Where do I start? She's a UNICEF Youth Ambassador for Artificial Intelligence, working on detecting suicidal ideation in social media content to provide suicide with support from Microsoft. She's the youngest researcher at MIT's AI lab. She's co-founded the nonprofit organization, the Hope Sisters, and she's the winner of the Princess Diana Award. In fact, she recently launched a digital rights strategy with Prince Harry himself. Why don't I turn it over to Alicia herself to tell you a little bit more about this award and the incredible work that she's doing. We are very proud of her here at Glen Forest.
Hi, my name is Alicia Aurora, and I'm a grade 11 IB student at Glen Forest Secondary School. I was recently recognized as one of the youngest recipients of Canada's Top 100 Most Powerful Women Award, and I was so honored to be recognized for my work, for both my philanthropy work and also my passion for leveraging AI to better support youth mental health. Currently, I serve as a UNICEF Youth Ambassador for Mental Health and AI and work on various initiatives to advocate for AI for children and better policy regulation around the world. I worked on a child rights policy with Prince Harry and also worked with the Council of Europe as well as the World Economic Forum to make better policies to serve young people when it comes to technology. I'm also working on leveraging AI to detect suicidal ideation in social media content so that young people can better have access to mental health resources and supports near them. I also have a nonprofit with my sister Kanisha where we serve vulnerable populations like homeless people and also seniors by doing small initiatives like writing hope cards or giving hope bags to them to make and bring a smile during these difficult times. Overall, my journey really started from a young age. And specifically, if it wasn't for my teachers and my middle school classmates and my high school teachers who motivated and inspired me to start and embark in a journey of STEM and join my school robotics team. If it weren't for those exceptional leaders in my life, I wouldn't be able to leverage a tool like technology or even work on making a global impact. This recognition to me means a lot, not just for myself, but for the impact I'm making and for the impact and also the voice that I represent amongst all young people. It's truly an honor, and it's also really an honor to just be a student at the Peel Board where I get to learn, I get to embark on a new journey, and I get to work on meaningful projects to make an impact. This is just the beginning for me, and I really hope that through all these projects, I can make an impact and impact billions of people for the better so that we can make a better world.
Hi, my name is Angelo Condos, and I'm the principal at Arundel Secondary School. I'd like to take this opportunity to share some great news about one of our students at Arundel, 16-year-old Aryan Gautam, who was awarded the TELUS Friendly Future Maker Planet Award, recognizing the more than 10,000 hours of volunteer work that Aryan has put towards climate activism and environmentalism. Award winners received a prize pack that included $5,000 to help fund their initiatives or to invest in a registered education savings plan, a $1,000 TELUS gift card, and a $1,000 donation to a registered charity of their choice. Aryan selected AIM for SIVA Canada, an organization that makes education and healthcare accessible to children, especially in countries where it is needed the most. Aryan is also the founder of the nonprofit Save the Planet Open Doors, which he created in 2015 and incorporated in 2019. Let's hear from Aryan himself as to what this award means to him and what he hopes to accomplish through this nonprofit organization.
Hello everyone, I'm Aryan Gautam. I would just like to start by saying that it's an absolute pleasure to be addressing you here today. If I was to introduce myself in 3 words, I would definitely say that I'm a very keen environmentalist. I'm proud to say that I am the youngest founder and director of a federally incorporated environmental nonprofit organization in Canada called Save the Planet Open Doors. We have several initiatives, including a housing energy efficiency rating for real estate listings, a natural project which focuses on rejuvenating and rediversifying an endangered butternut tree, as well as our most recent and biggest initiative, which is Killbit, and this is our very own environmental and donative cryptocurrency. In addition to this, we've also done several park cleanups, tree plantings, and so on. I'm very happy to say that combined, our initiatives have a projected populative impact to over 14.5 million people. My origin towards interest in climate change actually began when I was around 6 years old. I started monitoring many news reports and many media releases about climate change, and I was very interested in this as my curiosity tingled. As I continued to research this, I realized that it's something that I should work towards fixing. So I picked up my brother and a couple of friends, and I went out and started picking up some litter and just kind of doing the small little things I could in my community. So when I got back home, I decided to start my nonprofit organization. And from there on, we continued progressing our initiatives and making sure we're doing everything we can to help mitigate climate change. And I have to say that one of the biggest empowering factors in my nonprofit is definitely working with people and working with groups and partnering with people. That's the most empowering, the most motivating part of everything. And I would say it's a vital component of what's kept me going. Winning the TELS Friendly Future Maker Award, and specifically the Planet Protector section of it, has been an incredible experience for both me, my family, as well as everyone at my school. I definitely think that recognition like this is a huge motivating factor for me, and it's sort of proof for me that my work really is having an impact and that I should continue doing it. The awards news has also allowed me to create more relationships and more connections with amazing people, such as my principal Cantos. Through the award news, we both connected, and he's been a huge help in supporting me, and I'm incredibly grateful to the award for connecting me with this amazing person. Furthermore, I would say that the media coverage that has come along with this award has been a huge help for me in many things, including creating more volunteer opportunities for other people, us getting a bigger volunteer team, us getting more initiatives and more ideas from the public, us getting a lot of feedback, the organization progressing, and generally recognition being useful towards our furthermore projects and approvals moving on. Overall, this award has been a huge change for both me and my organization, as well as my school. Many people from Arundel Secondary School have continued to help us out and have joined community service, and I'm incredibly grateful for that. Once again, I would like to thank you all for taking the opportunity to listen to my words, and I'm very, very grateful to be able to address you. Thank you, and have a great night.
Hello, I'm Audrey Miller-Rebold, principal of Countryside Village Public School, and I have the pleasure of introducing Pranjal Patel. Pranjal is a 13-year-old grade 8 student who was born and raised in Brampton. She loves the arts, swimming, and one of her favorite hobbies is baking. She's very welcoming and selfless. She's a perfectionist and a procrastinator. They don't go well together, but she manages. Her family consists of her mom, her dad, her older sister, and her grandma. Last year, her short story Stars and poem Helpless were published in Ancient Ways, a collection of short stories written by young Canadians, and Spots, a collection of poetry written by young Canadians, respectively. She has attended Countryside Village Public School since grade 1, where she has always been a leader and integral part of the school community.
Good morning or good afternoon, Peel Advisory Board. My name is Pranjal Patel, and I'm 13 years old in grade 8. My short story, Stars, and my poem Helpless were published in Ancient Ways, a collection of short stories written by young Canadians and a collection of poetry written by young Canadians, respectively. I wrote this short story for a class assignment, and we were told we had to write a short story and poem to send into this competition. I didn't think much of it until I got an email back a month later saying I was chosen, and if I was okay with it being published. I was very happy, but also very confused as to why mine was chosen out of all the kids in Canada. Had some back and forth with the publishers about finishing touches, using my name, personal information, and final editing. Before I knew it, it was going to be printed. They said it would take 2 to 3 months to have them all printed, and then I would be a published author in a book. I told my teachers in Countryside Village as I was online learning in another school. They were also happy for me and got a few copies of the book to keep in our library. It took a while before it hit me that I was a published author. It makes me feel great every time someone comes up to me, a teacher, a friend, or a younger student, and they go, "Are you the published author?" And now sending a video to the director of Peel. As far as my future goes in writing, I don't have much in mind. I love free writing, not as much as when I'm given a certain subject. I love being able to write what's my imagination, create a world where anything is possible, or just write as a way to express how I'm feeling. I might enter more competitions like this in the future, but nothing for now. But you might hear about me again.
I'm Sabina Fremantle, the principal at Whitehorn Public School. I'm here today to celebrate our published author, Maritika Malik. One of our grade 3 students has published this book, Short Sweet Tales, a collection of 5 short and sweet tales for kids by a kid. Maritika started writing when she was 5 years old, and here at Whitehorn in grade 1, her teacher and the students in the class encouraged her to keep on writing and share her stories with the class. Now she's a published author. Her book can be found at the Sick Kids Hospital Library, at the Mississauga Library, and we have a number of copies here, but they're all gone except for my personal copy because all the students have been signing them out. We really, really are so proud of Maritika. If it's about building a toy with an elf, going on an adventure with a narwhal, or my personal favorite, Sloth at the Zoo, they are incredible, short, sweet stories. Keep on writing, Maritika. We are so proud.
Those were some wonderful accomplishments, and a big congratulations to each of the students on their impressive achievements. As the holiday season approaches, it is the time of giving, and we see our students engaged in numerous activities to support families in the community that need help. One example of giving is at Fletcher's Creek Senior Public School, where students and staff have already collected more than 1,500 pairs of socks for Regeneration Brampton, a not-for-profit that provides services for people experiencing homelessness and poverty. And there's still a week left in the campaign to collect sock donations. And on that note, I conclude my remarks for the evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Sarul. Is there any question for Director Sarul this afternoon? Okay, yeah. Trustee Pamoli?
Okay. First of all, thank you so much, Director. That was a wonderful update, and I loved hearing about all those incredible accomplishments from so many of our students, and what a great year it's been. So first of all, we know that we're in a very tough time when it comes to pediatric health right now, not just in our region, but right across Ontario and throughout Canada. And I've been so glad to have some great conversations with so many of my colleagues here at the table in the last couple of weeks about how important it is that we're doing what we can to ensure that we're providing a safe environment for our students and for the staff who work with our kids. So I'm glad to hear the update tonight, and I do have some questions, so I'd love to, through you, Chair, go to some of those. First of all, we know that the primary pediatric concern at this point is influenza, but while RSV and COVID and other influenza-like illnesses continue to cause stress on an already overburdened healthcare system, we are hearing this concern from Trillium Health Partners. Their pediatric units have been full or beyond full for quite some time now, and they just simply don't have the space anymore. And we're hearing this concern throughout the GTHA, and we recognize that this is going to continue to be a problem here locally too. We did not have a flu season throughout the last 2 years because of our COVID prevention measures. Now that we are past a lot of those measures, for the most part, many people have sort of stopped doing much of that. And we have very low flu shot rates, and we're not seeing a lot of masking in our schools. What measures are we using to strongly encourage masking? How are we putting that into practice so that we can try and improve that uptake in our schools right now?
Thank you for the question, Trustee Pramoli. And through you, Chair Green, I will ask Superintendent of Safe and Caring Schools, Michelle Stubbings, to provide a response.
Thank you, Director Swaroop. And thank you for your question. I appreciate that it's a difficult one these days. I'm in connection with Peel Public Health every 2 weeks. We meet, we discuss best practices, and I've raised the issue of mandatory masking and flu vaccines and whatnot. We continue to follow the advice of Peel Public Health and the Ministry of Health. So in terms of encouraging the masking in our schools, it's messaging through all families, it's constant communication with principals, it's reminders, memos to the system, and it's not just mandatory masking, but it's also respiratory etiquette, it's about hand hygiene, stay home if you're sick, all of those preventative measures.
Okay, go ahead.
No, and I really appreciate that. I can say as a parent, I've got 2 children who are in 2 different schools here in Mississauga. They're in grade 3 and grade 7. I do see some of this messaging, but I don't see a lot of it filtering through, and that is as a parent who has kids at 2 separate schools. As somebody, full disclosure, with my personal history with public health, we have already lost a child to a school flu outbreak, and that was 6 years ago. I think, probably more on the lookout for some of this messaging than most parents would be, and I don't see it cutting through. I know that when I'm going to visit my schools now, I see a very wide range in participation when it comes to masking. Sometimes I go to a school and I would say that maybe 40, maybe even more % of the students and staff are wearing masks, and it's very encouraging. And sometimes when I hear from those principals and other administrators at those schools, they're telling me that they're doing fairly well when it comes to absences. And then I visit other schools and I'm seeing kindergarten classrooms with 6 children in them. And they're telling me that it's been like this for a long time. And then I talk to administrators who are telling me that they know that some of their students are in the hospital right now. And we know that there's a chance that some of those children won't be coming home. So it's concerning. We do have this responsibility to make sure that we are doing what we can to ensure that our children are in the safest possible circumstances. We can't fix everything. I have seen the examples from other boards where they have attempted to put through measures regarding mandates or even motions to request masking. What I'm hearing is that that's not giving them the results that they had hoped for. So I don't know that that's the most effective way that we could move forward here, but I would love to see if there's something that we can do that would be more to further encourage through communication and education. And I think if we're here as a board, we're in the business of education here. And I've always felt in the work of public health and working together with our partners through public health and with Trillium Health Partners, we're so fortunate to have these incredible partners who do work so much in the education of health to help protect our community. And is there more that we can be doing to get more information in front of parents to ensure that they understand, first of all, how serious the situation is? I know earlier in the pandemic, we were seeing regular updates on the absence rates in our schools, and that was very useful. I know for me as a parent, and I heard so often on the playgrounds and talking to other parents in my community, that it helped them a lot to know, okay, so it's only 5% right now. That seems like it's okay. When it's hitting 30%, that is very concerning. And I do know that some of my schools are in that range at this point. And a lot of parents are not aware of it because they're not hearing it, or their kids take the bus so they don't see how empty their playgrounds are. Can we work together with our partners at Trillium, at Peel Public Health, with Osler, and put that information on the website so that parents understand this is how many students are missing from your kid's school. This is what the admission rates are like in our local hospitals. This is what the illness rates that we're testing are locally in our community, so that people have a better understanding of what's actually happening. Because I think that sort of piece is missing. And the more that people understand how serious it is right here in our community, not in Alberta, not all the way in British Columbia, where they've just last week had 6 children die, but even just over in Ajax, where a 2-year-old died on the floor of a hospital waiting room because there was no bed for her while she coded, and that was because of the flu. If we can do more to make sure that we're reducing those cases in our community, can we improve that? Can we put that information on the website? Can we put more on our social media channels? Can we send regular emails with this information just to ensure that we're protecting not only the health of our students and their families, but also their learning, so we're not having so many kids who are out of school so often? Sorry, that was a very long question.
Yes, so thank you for the question, Trustee Vermoley. And you know what? Thank you for sharing so many suggestions. And we know that there's always more that we can be doing as we continue to ensure the safety of all our students and staff in schools. Through you, Chair Green, I will ask our Executive Lead of Communications, Tiffany Gooch, to provide a more fulsome response.
Thank you, and through you, Chair Green, I think these last couple of years, there's absolutely been a lot of communication around everything healthcare related, which actually generally also means that some of that communication and those key messages can get stale, and almost folks are reading through it without seeing it anymore because they've seen so much of it. So we have ensured in our all family communications that we've kept a COVID-19 or a safe and caring schools section that always had more up-to-date information. On our website, we have a page that's dedicated to all things related to health, and we've continued to update that with any new information that we're receiving. But again, if families have seen that before, it's harder for them to go back and be looking at it. So today we also did share a letter to families from Peel Public Health that we worked with them to ensure that it wasn't just COVID related, it had flu and all of the three different ways within which families have been impacted right now with respiratory issues, and making sure that they're taking the steps that they could be taking. But to your point around as well, all of our channels, we're also taking a look at some additional social media collateral and pieces like that. So I know in the last 2 years we've been working very, very closely with Peel Public Health on these pieces, and they do a wonderful job of ensuring that we have multiple languages and things like that. But sometimes when it comes to having more just catchy types of materials, there are some really promising practices we're seeing from some of our other partners. So I've arranged some meetings with our colleagues with Trillium Health Partners for us to begin to work with them and see how we can be working with some of the collateral that they're putting together, and just ensuring one of the most important things for us was that we weren't contradicting our own information. So hugely important that when we're working with multiple partners that we're ensuring that what we're sharing is still clearly vetted through Peel Public Health. But I think we've got a lot still to go, and we'll continue to make sure that we're using as many of our channels as possible, and especially a concerted effort leading up to the holidays this year.
Got another follow-up, Trustee Pomoli?
I think Trustee Alves had something he wanted to ask, but I'll go through my questions too. So.
Okay. No, you would need to finish, and then Trustee
Oh, I see.
Alves.
Okay.
Okay, if you have a follow-up, then you can finish, and then I'll go to Trustee Alves.
Okay, through you, Chair. Is it possible to ask staff to lead by example while wearing masks? Because we know that right now in some schools we are seeing that, and this is obviously, of course, not a mandate. That's not what we're looking for, but can we make that request for staff to lead by example with mask wearing in schools?
So I will step in and say that one is that it will be up to the director to able to provide that direction to staff, and I will leave that up to the director to do that. But as trustees, we cannot ask for that to take place. But it's up to the director, because that's fall under the operation piece, the work. Okay, that's all your question? Okay, all right, I'm gonna go to Trustee Bailey first, and then Trustee Huff. Trustee Bailey online as a question.
Through you, Chair, this follows up on Trustee Pomoli's, what she's asking in terms of the plan. We're entering the holiday season where children are going to be off for the 2 weeks of the holidays, and coming back, many of them are going to be going away for the holiday season and coming back. What is the plan to ensure that they're safe, like they're coming back not spreading whatever they're coming back with, illnesses, right? So most of them are coming back from traveling. The last time I traveled, many of us got sick. Not saying that they're getting sick from traveling, but it is a possibility.
So if I'm clear, Trustee Bailey, you're asking staff if there's a plan in place for students who may be traveling over the holiday season when they return, if there's a plan in place to communicate safety mechanism to the family. Is that what you're asking?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, I'll turn over that to Director Saru.
Okay. Thank you for the question, Trustee Bailey, and through you, Chair Green, I am going to ask our Exec Lead of Communication, Tiffany Gooch, or Superintendent Safe and Caring Schools, Michelle Stubbings, to respond.
So thank you, through you, Director Swaroop. Lots of really good questions have been asked. I don't necessarily have all of the answers tonight. I can tell you that I do meet with Peel Public Health, and I think you've raised some really good points. There is information shared about flu and respiratory illnesses. Some of the tracking, though, is difficult because they're lab tested, so that's where we get the rates. But happy to engage in further conversations with Peel Public Health about the mandatory masking, plans upon return, information about vaccine clinics in multiple languages that are available to families. I do believe they have translator services available, and that was on the list. So again, not necessarily a clear answer, but I can certainly bring it up again at Tuesday's meeting.
And I'll add as well, I know that normally we've also taken a lot of direction from the ministry coming back to the new school year as well. So again, as we're moving a little bit further away from more direction coming from them, taking a look at some of the promising practices that we used in previous years around this, and absolutely ensuring not just going in and leading into the holidays, but also that there's really clear information being shared with school administrators and with families on the return for what their promising practices should be had they been traveling, or any of those other pieces that we'll be seeing over the holidays.
Okay. Okay, Trustee Bailey? Okay, I'm not seeing a
Thank you.
I'm not seeing a follow-up. Okay, Trustee Al.
Through you, Chairman Green, a question for Director Swaroop. Director, thank you kindly for providing the update. A couple questions just building off of my colleagues this evening. In terms of communication to family, is there an opportunity to provide parents and families with a daily communication regarding absences related to illness?
Director Swaroop.
Thank you for the question, Trustee Alves, and through you, Chair Green. There was a period of time when this was a requirement from the ministry, and it was being shared on a daily basis. But at present, that is not the requirement as a case. But we do monitor very closely, and we do send letters home to families when we recognize that there's a situation that needs to be addressed.
Okay, go ahead. Follow.
Although it may not be a requirement, is there an opportunity to explore reinstituting a daily communication regarding absences related to illness in general?
We follow the direction of Peel Public Health and the ministry. So at this time, we continue to follow their advice in really sharing all possible ways for precautions and preventive measures. So this is what it is at this time, Trustee Alves.
Okay. Last one follow-up and then a new question. In reviewing those communications that are being published, is there an opportunity for my colleagues and I to review that communication for opportunity for feedback or additional comment before it's communicated to parents and families?
So thank you for the question, and through you, Chair Green, to understand what you're asking is that if there's a communication memo that is going to be sent out, that it be shared prior with trustees. I will ask Exec Lead of Communications, Tiffany Gooch, to respond to that.
Absolutely. So currently, you receive an advance notice of communication with about an hour before it's being distributed. So you absolutely have time to let us know if there are errors or issues. The communication that we sent today was built in collaboration with Peel Public Health, so it would have slowed down our process. We would have needed to go back and forth a couple of times with them if there were additions that we needed, but absolutely possible. I will add, though, that these communications often are being written over a longer period of time. So if there are areas of interest or any key messages that you'd like to see improved, we can sometimes maybe not match that deployment, but work on the key messages moving forward for some of our other channels as well.
Thank you. That was regarding, in reviewing, I think one of my colleagues had also reviewed that most recent communication, just wanting to make sure, things like the links work appropriately and do link to the appropriate page. And then I do have a final question. Regarding opportunities that exist within public health agencies or partnering hospitals, is there an opportunity for the board to participate in a town hall for public information on, things like influenza or otherwise?
Thank you for the question, and through you, Chair Green, I will ask Exec Lead Tiffany Gooch to respond, because there are many, many different ways that we are using for communication.
Yeah, so sorry, through you, Chair Green, I will bring this back to my team. I think I joined the board during COVID, so we weren't doing as many events at that time. So I would like to do a little bit of historical sense of how we've hosted town halls. I think most have been through a lot more school councils or family of schools and things along those lines, so that accessibility was possible. But absolutely, we've got some space now with online and virtual opportunities. So there are some communications that we've done that have used those portals, but usually existing moments when parents were going to be coming together for different reasons. So we'll take a look at what those opportunities could be.
Thank you. No further questions.
Thank you. And just comment, so we're clear for trustees to understand, is that communication is an operation piece. And because it's an operation piece, we have to allow the staff to carry out their duties. And also, we have to understand that no one trustee can give direction to staff in any case whatsoever. So we have to make sure that when any direction to staff, it's agreed upon by the board, the entire board, and through the chair, we'll have discussion with the director and report back to the board as we move forward, so trustee understand the process and how we do things as we move forward. So I thank you for those questions. Very probing question. Thank you very much. Thank you, Director Saru. Supervisor Rodriguez is in receipt of your report. Thank you. We are going to move on to item number 11 on our agenda, and we have no consent agenda item. Committee minutes, sorry. The minutes of, and then we move on to number 12, which is the minutes from the last board meeting. They're here, and Supervisor Rodriguez is in receipt of these minutes. We'll move down to item number 13 on the agenda. There's no committee minutes for receipt this afternoon. We'll move to item 14, which is staff report. And I'll turn this over to Director Saru.
Thank you, and through you, Chair Green, I will ask Exec Lead of Human Rights, Jasmine Dunn, to provide a report on Directive 12, Policy 51, Human Rights, and the Operational Procedure 1 Communications Plan.
Thank you, Director Sarup. And through you, Chair Green, I would like to present the Human Rights Policy 51 and Human Rights Operating Procedure 1 Communications Plan. This board report is further to Directive 12 of the Ministry Review, which states that the mandate of the Human Rights Office is to ensure that the board's human rights complaint procedure is widely communicated and accessible. As can be seen through this report, several steps have been taken to reform the Human Rights Office, preserve its independence, and safeguard the neutrality of the office. Examples of these steps have included changing the office's name from the Human Rights Commissioner's Office to the Human Rights Office to reflect the office staff composition more accurately, changing the office's physical location from the Central Board office to an off-site location located at 200 Matheson Boulevard West, addressing community members' concerns regarding confidentiality and discreet access to the office. The Human Rights Office engaged in a review and update of the board's Human Rights public website with updates that provided the PDSP community with information on a diverse range of topics connected to discrimination and harassment, contrary to the Ontario Human Rights Code. It includes information on how to report an issue or make a complaint, information on the Human Rights Office, including its independence, and how to report an issue or make a complaint with the Human Rights Office. PDSP's human rights web pages were then added to every PDSP school website to further increase awareness, information, and access to human rights at PDSP. The Human Rights Policy, Policy 51 Human Rights, was updated and revised to include clarification on the scope of Policy 51, including in relation to other board policies and procedures, clarity on the grounds, forms, and principles of discrimination under the Code, including the addition of code-based harassment, sexual harassment, and poison environments as violations of Policy 51 Human Rights. Clarification on how and to whom to raise a concern of discrimination based on the role of the PDSP community member and who the concern is regarding was also clarified, along with clarity on the roles and responsibilities of all PDSP community members, students, parents, guardians, PDSP employees, managerial staff, the Director of Education, and the Human Rights Office at PDSP. Human Rights Operating Procedure 1, Procedure for Addressing Violations, was also updated and revised to clearly articulate the arm's length and impartial role of the Human Rights Office. It outlined the independence and impartiality of the Human Rights Office and addressed notable concerns and deficiencies highlighted in the ministry review, including the lack of a strong provision addressing reprisal, a lack of clarity in PDSP's complaint mechanisms, confusions on how or where to make a complaint, and how complaints will be addressed in a manner appropriate in the circumstances. As part of our consultation process in the development of the operating procedure, the Human Rights Office solicited comments and feedbacks from our key internal board, departmental, parent, employee, union, and association stakeholders. With the Human Rights Policy and Operating Procedure now in effect, the next phase in alignment with the ministry directive is centered on the communications plan for the Human Rights Office, the policy, and its operating procedure. The following action has already been taken to increase the presence of the Human Rights Office, Policy 51 Human Rights, and Operating Procedure 1. Beginning in September 2021, the Human Rights Office delivered system-wide human rights training, modules, and resources for the 2021-2022 school year for all employees and PDSP managerial staff. The training aligned with the operating procedure and provided information and instruction to all employees on identifying and understanding discrimination adversely impacting PDSP students and employees and their learning and working environments. It outlined clarification on how and to whom to raise the concern of discrimination and the mechanisms available for bringing forward human rights concerns. Further training took place at the beginning of the 2022-2023 school year with a completion date for all staff by the end of January 2023. The Human Rights Office will provide ongoing training to staff on an annual basis to build capacity and knowledge transfer on human rights and the Human Rights Office. The Human Rights Office launched an online Human Rights Office complaint and support form that allows PDSP community members to get in contact with the Human Rights Office easily and accessibly. The form is accessible on the board's public site for family and community members, as well as through the internal site. To communicate the updates to the PDSP community, the Human Rights Office updated its public site to reflect the Human Rights Policy, Operating Procedure, and provide the PDSP community with information and support regarding human rights concerns. a human rights manager and supervisor resource intranet site for the board, managers and supervisors with information and resources on how to identify and address discrimination and harassment under the code through alternate resolution or investigation, along with templates to support board management's investigation process under Policy 51, was also uploaded. A system-wide communication was sent out to the PDSB community to reflect the updates from the Human Rights Office, including the change of name and launch of the new website. A communication about the Human Rights Office with a direct link to the Human Rights Office's website was included in all 2022-2023 student agendas. A discriminatory language student survey to honor student voice and better understand the experience of students regarding discriminatory statements was also initiated by the Human Rights Office, allowing students to engage with and understand the presence and function of the Human Rights Office. The communication plan shared in this report will action the final stage of the communications plan for all audiences. This plan will be executed from December 2022 to June 2023 with the intention to strengthen PDSB's commitment to educate members of the community on Human Rights Policy 51, the Human Rights Operating Procedure, and the Ontario Human Rights Code, as well as maintain awareness of human rights-related reporting and support mechanisms to internal and external stakeholders. The policies define outcomes, procedures, roles, responsibilities, and accountability measures will also be highlighted. The communication plan addresses the concerns noted in the ministry's review, including confusion among PDSB students, parents, and employees on how or where to make a complaint and how complaints will be addressed by providing information to the PDSB community. The plan has been developed in a manner meant to build understanding on the final policy and procedure, provide further information to educate stakeholders on policy, and ensure employees are aware of the policy and fully understand it and its use as understood under the Ontario Human Rights Commission. This will be implemented by educating parents and families on human rights issues by holding communication sessions with school council and the Parent Involvement Committee, utilizing communication through all family channels for key messaging, engaging in stakeholder outreach, continuing to utilize internal communications, sharing key messages about the Human Rights Office through the student agenda, use of morning school announcement, and engaging in a student voice survey on discriminatory statements on a biannual basis, as well as continuing to offer and facilitate training and information sessions for families, African, Black, Afro-Caribbean stakeholders, Indigenous stakeholders, unions, PDSB employees, and managerial and supervisory staff. Upon completion of this plan, the Human Rights Office will continue to do proactive communications on any new issues and updates and ensure timely responses to issues. That concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you for your report. Is there any questions? I'm seeing none. Okay. Supervisor Rodriguez is in receipt of your report. Thank you very much. And we are going to move on the agenda to item 14, Director's Rule.
Yes. Through you, Chair Green, I will now be asking Associate Director Camille Logan to present the report on Directive 18, the Comprehensive Diversity Equity Audit Tools.
Thank you, Director Swaroop, and through you, Chair Green, I will now share the Directive 18 Comprehensive Diversity Equity Audit Tools report. As we are aware, the Ministry of Education has mandated 27 directives that have been outlined to guide the transformation of the Peel District School Board to one that is equitable, inclusive, and affirming for students, creating conditions through which they can thrive and meet their optimal potential. This requires specific actions on the part of educators to address the disproportionate outcomes for historically and currently marginalized students. Directive 18 states, the board shall, through its equity office, established pursuant to Direction 10, undertake a comprehensive diversity audit of tools, including naming, mascots, libraries, and classrooms. This should include evaluating books, media, and other resources currently being used in schools for teaching and learning English, history, and social sciences to ensure that they are inclusive and culturally responsive relevant, and reflective of the student bodies and voices and broader school communities. In order to fulfill the expectations with regards to the deliverables by creating a structure to address the various components of the directive through the equity object structure, which has 3 sections. The 3 sections consist of auditing of schools' learning environments, auditing of schools' naming and mascots, and auditing of schools' libraries. In the report, the first section of the school is the equity audit tool for schools. The audit tool is grounded in the board's pillars, relationships, leadership, and capacity building, student learning and well-being, and accountability. As schools move forward in the implementation of the school equity audit tool, they are reminded to focus on a critical examination of educator practices, policies, and structures that must be dismantled and replaced to create identity-affirming teaching and learning environments. The school equity audit tool is an interactive cycle that allows for ongoing work and critical dialogue as we work toward deep and sustainable system transformation. The school equity audit tool provides access to assessment opportunities in areas that educators might not traditionally examine that focus on the learning environments of schools and classrooms. The school equity audit tool is divided into 6 sections. 1, critical frameworks. 2, student well-being. 3, design of learning environments. 4, curriculum. 5, how we teach. And 6, text and learning resources. Some schools have already begun work in these different areas. One of the strengths of the tools is that it allows for multiple entry points as we build on best practice. As the school-based equity audit school teams and/or the school improvement and equity planning teams work through sections of the audit tool, this information will allow them to identify areas to further develop and build upon as they work collectively to establish identity-affirming learning environments. This data will be provided to superintendents to allow them to identify the varied and responsive ways in which they can best support their schools through professional learning, collaborative conversations, and learning networks. The school equity audit tool will provide system-wide data to inform next steps and future learning opportunities to ensure a collective understanding of how to create anti-racist, anti-oppressive, and anti-colonial learning environments. The second tool, the deselection of audit resources in the Library Learning Commons, is a tool that is critical for creating identity-affirming PDSB learning spaces. The use of anti-racist and anti-oppressive text should provide authentic connection, evoke genius and joy in all students. Ongoing systemic weeding of the collection is necessary to offer culturally relevant and current learning resources to students and to limit the harm that occurs when outdated and oppressive resources remain in circulation. The weeding process ensures that the collection is student-centered, accurate, relevant, and responsive to the school community's lived experience and diverse learning needs. Administrators, library staff, and educators will regularly review existing resources using an equitable deselection process. Resources that meet deselection criteria will be removed from library collections, novels, kits, classrooms, professional libraries, and all other learning environments. The deselection process is an ongoing curation cycle. Library staff and administrators will collaborate to create and adhere to established and documented curation schedules, whereby all collections will be reviewed every 5 years. There are 3 steps in the deselection process. Step 1, an equity-informed weeding of the collection to remove damaged, outdated, and uncirculated resources. Step 3, anti-racist and inclusive audit, which includes the auditing of the collection to ensure that resources, especially text and images, do not perpetuate or reinforce racist content, stereotypes, or promote deficit thinking. And step 3, a representation audit of the collection to identify voices, identities, and perspectives that are overrepresented and those who are missing. In addition to being reflective of students and the board's broader school communities, resources must intentionally affirm students' identities and continue to be sparsely represented in PDSB's current collection in classrooms. A particular focus should be on amplifying Black, Indigenous, 2S LGBTQ+, Muslim, Latinx, Jewish, and South Asian identities as evidenced in the ministry review, as well as other historically marginalized identities. The third tool is the School Names, Mascots, and Logos tool. Schools' names, mascots, and logos are some of the ways that racist and colonial ideologies are maintained and perpetuated in Ontario schools. The audit tool, focused on names, mascots, and logos, is intended to assist educators in evaluating the images and representation in all Peel District School Board schools. School names, logos are instructive about who and what we value. Students, staff, and families in the Peel District School Board have attended schools with racist images in hallways, offices, and classrooms. Indigenous students in particular have endured anti-Indigenous racism via representations that commemorated settler colonialism, misappropriated and exoticized images from their communities. The School Naming, Mascots, and Logos audit tool will guide educators to critically examine how school identities can be redesigned using anti-colonial and anti-racist paradigms to address historical harm. The assessment of school names, mascots, and logos will include the development of a guideline and includes actions and indicators for schools to reference when considering whether the current school name and mascot reflect anti-racist and anti-oppressive principles. The guidelines will include a role for community consultation and engagement of the school community in the process. The audit tool has 3 guiding principles: legal underpinnings, a community-centric framework, and critical self-reflection. As part of an initial rollout, the tool is being piloted in some schools in the south of the board and others in the north. A consultation strategy will be developed in the new year to engage with a variety of stakeholders across the system. Feedback and recommendations from these pilot schools will allow the committee to make adjustments so that the tool will be ready for all schools in early 2023. This concludes the presentation of the Directive 18 Comprehensive Equity Audit Tools Report. Are there any questions?
Thank you, Associate Director Logan. Is there any questions? Trustee B. McDonald.
The other button, sorry. Thank you, Chair. So I think if we're going to have a future reports on the directives, I would appreciate if the directive was the preamble to the report, because I had to go back and look at what Directive 18 was in continuity and not understanding the content that you're presenting, which is thoroughsome, but I would have liked it there, and I think it'd be very helpful as a comment. So I started looking at that directive, and I was confused from what I read to what I'm listening. So maybe you can help me understand that. And let me try to bring it up here. I've lost it. There it is, Directive 18. The board shall, through the Equity Office established pursuant to Directive 10, undertake a comprehensive diversity audit of schools, which shall include naming, mascots, libraries, and classrooms. So I only heard mascots and classrooms in there, not library namings, but that's subsequent to what I'm looking at. The board shall evaluate books, media, and all resources which you talked about, but it says in the use of teaching and learning English, history, and social science. So I didn't hear that in your report. I heard mostly talking about libraries, but I didn't hear about how that reflects to the teaching of those. And then it goes on, and for the purpose of utilizing resources that are inclusive and culturally responsive, relevant, and reflective of the students and the board's broader school community. I heard a smaller subset of community, but I didn't hear the word broad. And that means a lot larger community. So I don't have to list the communities that were missed, but there were substantially more than what you listed in your report. So the board shall ensure the audit is among the first priorities of the Equity Office. This is almost 2023, so I'm concerned, but anyway. And allocate the appropriate resources to conduct the detailed audit. So I looked at your timeline, and I would like to suggest we move it up. Anyway, thank you.
Through you, Director Swaroop and Chair Green, thank you, Brad McDonald, Trustee McDonald.
All right, I'm going to move to Trustee K. McDonald. Trustee K. McDonald.
Thank you. Through you, Chair. I have a question with regards to auditing the actual physical libraries. So the surroundings, the posters that are on the walls, some of the murals. Is there a plan to also include that in the audit to making sure they're current and some of the outdated posters and certificates are replaced and refreshed and with relevant information and murals for the students in the school?
Through you, Chair Green, and thank you for the question, Trustee McDonald. The audit is broken up into 3 sections. So one of the sections is with regards to the school learning environments. And that's the first tool that you will see that's listed in the report, the School Equity Audit Tool, and that is to audit the entire environment within the context of the school. So that particular section is about the school and the learning environment, but we also know that within the learning environment is the library. And we wanted to make sure that we had an opportunity to be in depth around those specific learning materials that were in the library and also in our classroom libraries. So that's why you'll see that tool as listed separately.
Okay, okay, thank you very much.
Okay, Trustee Off.
Through you, Chairman Green, I believe I have a follow-up question to a couple that my colleagues have asked. I've got a couple to go with, but one question that I do have is, in the removal of these books, is there an opportunity for you to provide some clarity on what happens to the books that are removed?
Through you, Chair Green, and thank you for your question, Trustee Alves. I will now turn it over to Superintendent Bernadette Smith, Superintendent of Innovation and Research, to respond to the question.
Thank you for the question, and through you, Chair Green. So with regards to the books that are removed, many of them will be disposed of. And that is because we are looking at books through various lenses. And the first weeding process that happens is for any books that have mold or have any sort of decay or anything of that sort, because there are many, many, many books in school libraries right now, as well as in our learning commons that we've already gone through that fit that category. So they are disposed of. Others may be collected or donated to different spaces depending on what the content is. And the purpose of what it is that we're doing initially is to ensure that all books are representative of our students, that they're current and culturally relevant. And so the disposal of those books is extremely important when there is any mold or decomposition, and so that is part of the weeding. And as Associate Director Logan had described, there are 3 different components of this audit, and so right now we're working through that initial one, which is the official weeding, to ensure that books are safe for students to actually handle. Thank you.
Thank you kindly. Yes, Chairman Green, I have a follow-up and then just a couple more questions. So as a follow-up, is it possible for the Board of Trustees to request a report on which, how many books are being disposed of and which are being donated, to understand from a cost analysis how much this kind of translates to? And as kind of a build on that question, as these books are being removed, are they being replaced at a one-to-one basis? And I ask this question coming from concern from members of the community in terms of like going to actual schools and looking at bare shelves in the library. So I'm just wondering if it's one-to-one, and if we can ask for a report on cost and numbers in terms of how many are being disposed of and how many are being donated.
Thank you for your question, and through you, Chair. So there's no formal list of specific books that can be selected or deselected. And it is, texts that are selected are not considered bad or banned, but rather not necessarily current enough or relevant to remain in schools. Certainly, there are books that are replaced in libraries. However, it is not a one-to-one replacement. So that replenishment plan is something that we're working on because we recognize that many of the books are going to be taken from libraries, and that does leave gaps in library collections. And so we are currently actually working on that plan now in terms of how we're going to be providing replenishment funds for schools through the board at the central level as well as within a school in terms of operating budgets.
Yeah. So just one more follow-up through you, Chairman Green. So I think more specifically what I'm asking is the books that are being disposed of due to mold and things of safety and health, can the board request those numbers and the numbers of books that are being donated, just so we know how many were disposed, how many have been donated? And also in reading the motion, the directive, I understand that the Ministry of Education will be in part funding the replenishment of these books, so just hoping for a little bit more clarity on that, and apologies if that's a redundant question.
And thank you for the question, and certainly we can provide that information once we have it. It is a long process, and it's not something that is happening very quickly. It takes many hours for a teacher librarian to go through the many collections that they have in their library learning commons, and currently with a very small staff at the library support services, our resource teachers are working with pilot schools more intensely to understand really the process. This is new for everyone going through it, so supporting the building of capacity of staff. And there will also be professional learning opportunities for teacher librarians as well to develop their capacity to do this. So certainly as we go on, we are tracking some of the work, obviously, that is happening, and as well the funding that's going to be needed. So that process is happening now, and we can certainly share that with you at a future time when we have more information.
Thank you kindly. And Chairman Green, I only have one additional question, and it is for Associate Director Logan. Regarding the tool and the criteria that is used for the selection and deselection of the removal of books, can you provide a little bit more clarity on how the tool operates, or perhaps some of the background of the tool and how it specifically functions in that removal process?
Thank you for the question, Trustee Alves, and I will turn it back over to Superintendent Bernadette Smith of Innovation and Research.
Thank you for the question, and through you, Chair. So there are 3 steps to this audit for the library resources. The first step is an equity-informed weeding selection of the resources that will need to be removed based on damage, whether or not they're out of date, or uncirculated resources. As well, we look at whether or not there's mold and all those physical features. But if there's any racist comments or anything that is not inclusive, those are removed right away. And then in the step 2, anti-racist and inclusive audit, we're calling it, of the collection, we then ensure that resources, especially texts and images within that, so you can imagine how much work goes into reviewing all of those resources. If they do not perpetuate or reinforce racist content, stereotypes, or promote deficit thinking, then again, that is what we are looking at to audit. And then the step 3 is a representation audit of the collection to identify voices, identities, and perspectives that are overrepresented and those that are missing. And so again, that takes time to be reviewing books, especially as you get older, into older grades. There's a lot of text that we go through, and there's also a lot of work being done by the library resource teachers to read many of the books and then provide input and service to schools to support them with that process. Does that answer your question?
Thank you
Yes.
kindly, through you, Chairman Green. It does answer the question, and I think just in continuity with the report I requested earlier, if we could also have in that report the titles that are being removed for the board's knowledge and background, that would be much appreciated.
So we don't collect all of the titles because it's going to be different in different schools. It's not a censorship where we have a list of which books we're going to be banning or removing. It's not in that regard. So it will be contextual as well in terms of the decisions that are made within the schools. And certain books definitely will be taken off the shelves. So we will have certain ones that definitely will have as ones that we can share with you. Other ones, however, will be different for each school, and it is within the autonomy of the school as teachers are developing their capacity to identify, based on those 3 steps within the audit, which books remain, which are appropriate, and which are not. And one other thing I'll just add is I think this will help to clarify. So libraries in schools are not public libraries, right? So the resources that we have in schools are specifically for the educational purposes within our schools. So we want to be as selective as possible in terms of the types of books that we're putting in the hands of our students and our staff in order to ensure that they are not going to be perpetuating any trauma or any harm as has been happening, right? And so within our libraries, we're selective, and as well, this is one of the reasons why we need these audits to ensure that there aren't any books on shelves that anyone can pick up and have any sort of lasting effects that are going to be negative and continue to marginalize.
Through you, Chairman Green, my last point of clarification would be the request for the titles is because my understanding is that these libraries are unique to each school, in that one library may ban a book that perhaps, or remove a book that perhaps another library has not. I think it would be valuable for the board to receive these titles if possible, to understand across the board where some schools may wish to remove a select title. So I do think it is increasingly important to, if possible, see that title list.
So, Trustee Half, we cannot direct staff to basically at this time, this work is a work that is a journey that the staff is on at the moment, and we cannot direct them in terms of the report and titles. The staff is saying to us that they will bring a report and the costs and replenishing, what does that look like to the board? But in terms of asking staff to start putting titles, this is a lot of work, a lot of time, and it will also cost a lot of money. So we cannot direct the staff to able to do that, because the first thing we would have to do is to say what it's going to cost to get that work done. So because we don't know that figure, so at this point, we cannot ask staff to do that.
Understood, yep, just trying to protect as many kids as we can.
Okay, Trustee Benjamin.
Through you, Chair, all my questions have been answered in the course of the last discussion. Thank you.
All right, thank you. I'm not seeing any other question. Okay. All right.
My hand is up.
Who's that? I think it's Carla. Oh, I did not see that. Okay, go ahead, Trustee Bailey.
Through you, Chair Green. So thank you for all the work that you've done. My question was, what is the process to ensure that students are not without sufficient resources and books during the reading process? Because a lot of books could be removed, leaving them without books during this process. How are you ensuring that in school, especially larger schools, that there are sufficient? And I understand that this is not a public library, but many students rely on the school library for the books.
AD Logan.
Through you, Chair Green, and thank you for your question. Essentially, we want to always remind, our schools and so forth that they already have budgets that they receive on an annual basis to be able to purchase resources. So schools have budgets to purchase resources that includes books for their library, and they're able to use those funds that they would use each year in a particular way that aligns with our equity audit process. And so the process is one that takes time, and it happens over a cycle of time. And so we are not leaving classrooms and libraries bare. We're conscious of that, but we also have budgets that are in schools to be able to replenish as well.
So are you replenishing first and then removing, or you're removing and then replenishing? What is the process that's happening to ensuring that children always have books at their disposal?
I think in each school, it's going to look different because it's also dependent on what's in the school, but it's happening simultaneously. And there's a process and it's a phased approach, and some of which is actually in the report as well, that outlines how we're working through each step. And initially, the first stage, as Superintendent Smith outlined, is about the weeding process to look at books that are damaged, and then there's a second and a third step. So that takes time to work our way through to ensure that we're not left with bare shelves in our classrooms or in our libraries.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I'm seeing no other questions at this time. Thank you, AD Logan. Thank you, Director Sru. Thank you, Superintendent Smith, for the report. Supervisor Rodriguez is in receipt of the report. Thank you. Okay, we're going to move to 14.2, which is the borrowing resolution for the school board expenditure. Turn it over to Director Sru and to introduce Associate Director Gill.
Through you, Chair Green, I will now ask Associate Director Jaspal Gill to present this report.
So thank you, Director Sprout, and through you, Chair Green. This borrowing resolution, if approved, will allow the board to borrow funds from time to time to meet its ongoing operating expenditures during the year 2023. So this normally happens when there is a time gap between the payment of expenditures and when the board receives funds either from the ministry or the local municipality. The resolution also authorizes the Associate Director of Operations and Equity of Access to apply board revenue to repay the borrowed funds as well as the interest charges. Happy to answer any questions.
Okay, any question? I am seeing none. Thank you. Supervisor Rodriguez is approving the recommendation contained in the report that any two of the supervisor chair, vice chair, director, associate director of operation equity, access treasurer of the board, and associate director of school improvement equity, and hereby authorize on behalf of the board to borrow from time to time by any way of promissory note, bankers, acceptance of operation, overdraw facilitated in accordance with section 243(1) of the Education Act up to the maximum sum of $250,000, and outstanding amount in any given time will substantially represent the unreceived or uncontrolled balance of the estimate revenue of the board to meet the current expenditure of the board until the current revenue has been received, provided that the interest and other charges connected therewith do not exceed the interest that would be payable at the prime lending rate of the majority of the charter bank on the date of borrowing, and further, that the Associate Director of Operation Equity of Access Treasurers of the Board is hereby authorized and directed to apply in payment of all sum borrowed as foresaid, together with interest thereon, all the money comprising the current revenue of the board hereafter received. Thank you. Okay, we are going to move to item 15 on the agenda. And there's no trustee motion to be considered tonight. We're going to move to item 16. Item 16, Supervisor Rodriguez has received a motion from Trustee Cameron and is seconded by Trustee Clark. And at this time, I'm going to ask Trustee Cameron to read the motion.
Thank you, and through you, Chair Green, thank you to Trustee Clark for being the seconder of the motion, and thank you to staff for their help in writing this. I'll read the motion as it appears in our agenda. Whereas the Education Act, through Ontario Regulation 7/07, student trustees, specifies that a board shall have 2 but not more than 3 student trustees. And whereas the Education Act, through Ontario Regulation 462/97, First Nations representation on boards, supports and provides for the appointment of Indigenous representation in its board membership. And whereas the Peel District School Board is dedicated to Indigenous educational sovereignty and reconciliation and recognizes the importance of representation, therefore be it resolved that the Peel District School Board Student Trustees Policy be amended to update the number of student trustees from 2 to 3 to include 1 self-identifying Indigenous student to be elected by students who voluntarily self-identify as First Nations, Métis, or Inuit. And further, that staff, in consultation with Indigenous communities, draft an update to the Peel District School Board Student Trustee Policy and Procedure to establish a process by which an Indigenous student trustee may be elected to the board, to be presented by way of report to a future meeting of the Governance and Policy Committee. And further, that upon recommendation for approval by the Governance and Policy Committee, the updated Student Trustee Policy and Procedure be presented to the Peel District School Board of Trustees at a future board meeting for approval. And further, that an approved Peel District School Board Student Trustee Policy and Procedure be in place prior to the 2024 student trustee elections to allow for the inclusion of an Indigenous student trustee commencing with the 2024-2025 school year. That is the motion. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Trustee Cameron. That motion will come back to a January meeting for discussion. Thank you. As I said, Supervisor Rodriguez has received this motion. Thank you. We're going to move to item 17, no agenda tonight, and there is no adoption. There was no closed session this afternoon. We'll move to the final item on our agenda tonight. But before I move adjournment tonight, I just want to take the time to say, as this is the last board meeting for 2022, I just want to take the time to wish each and every one, all of our staff, our families, trustees, and colleagues, all the best for the holiday season. We hope that you will take some time to rest and enjoy yourself. And as you do that, try to remember that the pandemic has a great impact on many families this year. And those families, sometimes we have more than they do have. So let us think about them and let us provide a helping hand in any way which we can to support those families. And, we can do that through many, many different channels, such as United Ways, the various different community agencies that are out there. And let us ensure that those that are less fortunate can feel the love of this holiday season. So I thank you tonight, and with that, we stand adjourned. Thank you.